I think another thing that really holds people back, and I'd love to know your thoughts on it, is dairy. A lot of people, they'll go on carnivore and they'll hear that dairy is, I mean, in most people's definition, dairy falls in the terminology of carnivore. And so they'll
Mm.
hear this and they think they have free reign on dairy.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
tends to have some pretty unfavorable outcomes, to put it
Yeah.
nicely, for some people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, it is definitely technically carnivore.
Mm.
It's coming, from from an animal. But that's not to say that things like honey are carnivore because they come from a bee. Because it's not really from a bee. It's not made from a bee. It's the concentrated nectar that they swallow and then regurgitate up. So actually vomit it back up, and they sort of have it in this stored, concentrated form that they can then eat later. And bees are a very different form of life. Insects are very different than mammals are. But um, dairy is a bit of a gray area because some people do fine on dairy and other people have a bad reaction to it. It can be quite pro-inflammatory. The casein proteins can be quite inflammatory. This is where they have A1 and A2 milk. A2 milk and A2 dairy is less inflammatory because it has A2 casein, but it's still inflammatory. It's just not as inflammatory as A1. And so again, is it compared to what? Compared to A1, yes, A2 is better. Compared to no casein at all, no, it's not good. And so we're not as good. And so it's it's one of those things that I think people have to be very careful with. Like I don't really use dairy. I mean, if I were, I would use it as a condiment. I would use it very rarely. I would use it as a condiment with meat, where I would melt some cheese onto meat, like a burger patty or something like that. I don't just you know maybe have a glass of raw milk every now and then when it's available, and with a meal or something like that. But I wouldn't just sit there just drinking a bunch of milk, and I wouldn't just eat a bunch of blocks of cheese, and I wouldn't eat just bowls of yogurt or anything like that. If you're going to use dairy, use it infrequently and you use it as a condiment. And most people actually do a lot better without it. It can also cause a bit of compulsive eating, cause people to eat more than they would necessarily want. If you're just eating what you're designed to eat, if you're just eating meat, then your body will tell you when to stop. It just stops tasting good. And but you can keep eating dairy for some reason. You just keep drinking milk, certainly, because that has carbohydrates that will raise your insulin, that will block your leptin, that will cause you to overeat. And so not very good. But there are other molecules in dairy, including cheese and things like that, that can cause a bit of compulsive eating and just saying, I want more, I want more, I want more. And so I think it's a good idea to really stay away from dairy. And I totally agree with you. When you tell people it's like, yeah, you can have dairy, but, and I give that whole spiel, all they hear is like, oh, I can have dairy. And they're just eating just chunks of cheese and bowls of dairy and yogurt and just dumping down gallons of milk and things like that. And they're like, oh my God, I'm putting on weight. This is bullshit. And it's just like, okay, well, what are you eating? And it's a lot of dairy typically. And so that's a classic weight loss stall and and a classic weight gain. Um, which is what dairy is supposed to do. It's supposed to make young animals and young mammals eat enough to put on weight because they need to grow. They need to grow quickly so that they can be safe and strong and an adult to protect themselves and defend themselves because they're very vulnerable when you're a small animal. So it's definitely not ideal. It is carnivore, it is definitely part of that, but it's not ideal. It has a lot of good nutrients, has some things that you don't want, but it's not a complete nutrition. Like you can't just live on cheese. You can live on steak. And so it's not something that you should just eat on its own, and you shouldn't eat much of it. So if you wanted to use it as a condiment, that if that helped you, especially people that have difficulty, like just can't get their head around just eating meat and that's it, then adding a bit of dairy and having that sort of thing as the adjunct, or using these different recipes that involve cream and cheeses and things like that to make chaffles and those sorts of things that helps you get along with it. That's fine, but just do understand this can cause inflammation. Anyone with autoimmune issues really should not eat any dairy. Should really just stick to just red meat and water. And if you react negatively to dairy, you should definitely not have any dairy. And everyone else, use it very sparingly, very infrequently, and only as a condiment, because it will make you gain weight, and it will make you stop losing weight, and it can make you put on fat and not feel as good as you could. And so obviously that's not what we're going for.
Hmm. Now, the other thing that people really like to try and skirt into the perimeters of carnivore is fruit. Now, I don't
Mhm.
know how they've managed to convince themselves that,
Yeah.
but there is some notable doctors online who are advocates of fruit and they
Mhm.
consume large quantities of it. What is your main concerns with fruit?
Well, I did a whole video just it's called "Fruit and Honey Are Not Carnivore," and that sort of addresses those things. But a obviously, a fruit a plant is not carnivore, right? So if you're just going off that, but you don't have to be pedantic. Oh no, no, it's technically not. No, let's look at why. The argument for eating fruit, especially sweet fruits, um, is that is is if you need carbohydrates, and if you need carbohydrates, then where are you going to get your carbohydrates from? Because plants and grains and seeds and these sorts of things, potatoes, they have carbohydrates, yes, but they also have a lot of toxic elements that you really don't want. So the argument was that if you do want carbohydrates, and the argument was is that you did, even though you actually make all the carbohydrates you need, you have a perfect level of blood sugar at all times when you're in a state of ketosis. That if you felt that you did need carbohydrates, then that would be a better source of carbohydrates than others, and that's probably true. But sugar is sugar, you know. And so sugar is going to do the same things in your body, especially fructose. Fructose acts differently in your body. So the different sorts of carbohydrate molecules, the different sugar molecules act differently in your body. They have different, I mean, they're different chemicals. They're different chemical compounds. They have different chemical reactions in your body, and they have different hormonal reactions and responses in your body as well. They'll all raise up insulin um, and blood sugar eventually, but things like fructose specifically will also raise insulin, but will also block leptin independently and will upregulate ghrelin, which is our hunger signal as well, which can cause you to overeat. And leptin is our satiety hormone. So you're blocking your satiety hormone and you're increasing your hunger hormone. And what is that going to do? It's going to make you more hungry. You're going to want to eat more. And so and it does other things in your body too that you don't want also, and that people can look into. I've done a lot of videos on sugar and fructose as well, but I'm looking up Dr. Robert Lustig. He's done a lot of work on sugar and fructose. So you're bringing these things into your body, and so this can cause harm. Fructose, it has been shown by the University of California, San Francisco biochemistry department in 2009 that actually fructose goes into your liver and gets broken down into the same byproducts as alcohol. So you get the same breakdown products as alcohol, and you get the same damage to your body and your liver from those breakdown products that you do alcohol. So you get fatty liver disease, you get cirrhosis, you get diabetes, you get heart disease. It's even implicated in things like cancer and Alzheimer's. So this is a bad substance. It also gives a large dopamine hit to the addiction centers of your brain, just like cocaine, heroin, and meth. And there are actually MRI studies showing that people who are addicted to sugar kill the same areas of their brain as people who are addicted to methamphetamines. So it kills the same areas of your brain as meth to the same extent as meth, and it damages your body in a similar way to alcohol. So this is a drug. This is a nasty, nasty drug. It's just we don't know it yet. We realize and recognize it as such yet. And so this is illegal to put in all these foods and sugar stills and kids' foods and kitties. You're trying to get kids addicted to sugar so that they keep eating this product. And oh, that sounds horrible. No one would do that. Well, they would actually, because the Procter and Gamble and the other tobacco companies, when they got called out for being, doing unscrupulous sort of practices and lying about how bad their product was and how addictive it was, um, and the cigarette sales started coming down after they got called out for this by the U.S. Congress. They actually started buying up some of the major food companies. So it actually became one of the largest processed food manufacturers in the world, the tobacco industry. And they actually moved all their tobacco scientists into the food sciences to try to make those as addictive as possible. But now they could actually legally target kids for marketing, and they could market towards them and market these sugar cereals and these big colorful boxes and just get their bright eyes and oh my god, I need that. And it becomes very addictive. And so, like any good drug dealer, you hook your victims early and young, so that you have a customer for life. And that's the whole idea. And that's what they're doing now with sugar. And so fruit has sugar, and it does have toxins. The idea is that fruit is the only part of the plant that that the plant wants you to eat. Well, the plant That's true in a sense, but it's not the whole story. So the plant wants something to eat that plant, that fruit, but it doesn't necessarily want you to eat it. And so the vast majority of fruit on Earth will still kill you. They'll still kill humans. They'll still kill basically all animals because they've co-evolved with other animals to try to eat that fruit and then move that seed, mostly with birds. So things like cassowary bird is a tropical bird. Oh, any tropical fruit is good. No, if you get lost in the woods and you start looking at little bulbs and berries that you don't recognize, you don't eat them because more often than not, they'll kill you. And that's because they have to go through the digestive tract of certain animals like birds, specific birds, in order to germinate and turn into a plant. So cassowary bird is a bird in the tropics. They eat frugivores. They eat fruit. So you eat about 150 varieties of fruit. Every single one of those fruit will kill you. Every single one of those fruits will kill every single animal on Earth except a cassowary bird, because if they don't go through the gut of a cassowary bird, they won't turn into a plant. And so it's very important to that plant to only be eaten by cassowary birds. They have to be very attractive to a cassowary bird, very beneficial, and very detrimental to anything else trying to eat them. And because if a cassowary bird leaves an area, then they actually will die, those plants will die out. And so it's very, very important. So we need to remember that. And again, we talk about different sorts of fruits like grapes and avocados. So, well, okay, we'll eat those. Those are good. The plant wants you to eat them. Okay, but they kill cats and dogs. Tomatoes, they're berries, they're fruits. They'll kill cats and dogs. They're nightshades. We know this as a dangerous family of plant, the nightshade family. And so, typically we didn't eat them. Then we started eating some of these things, but we took off the skin, we vine ripened, and then we took the seeds out, and and then we boiled the hell out of what was left, and that lowered the toxic load. And that's how we were able to eat these things more safely. But now we're saying, like, eat it raw, eat it this, eat it that, eat the skin, get the seeds. That's where all the nutrients are. Well, again, this is cherry picking. You're getting the good, you're getting the bad with the good, and you're ignoring the bad for the good. And so that's really not what you want to do. And so these fruits do have toxins. They don't have, especially the sweet fruits, they don't have nearly as many toxins. But even all citrus have coumarins, which are light sensitive molecules. They combine with UV light. When UV light hits them, they will irreversibly bind to proteins and DNA in your body and in your cells and cause permanent damage. It cause you to blister and get chemical burns. Like if you got lime juice down your arms because you're squeezing limes in the sun, you could actually get chemical burns. There's actually people have gotten second-degree burns from this. It's something called phytophotodermatitis, right? So light-sensitive dermatitis from plant toxins, right? This is actually a well-known feature in dermatology. And that's a condition that people treat in dermatology. It's not all that common, but it does happen. It is in the literature. People can look this up. There are news reports about it, and it's certainly in dermatology textbooks. So there are toxins in there. There can be less in the sweet fruits because we think of fructose as the sweetest of the carbohydrates because we think that evolutionarily speaking, that our ancestors that recognized that as safe were the ones that survived. So fructose doesn't come along in fruits or plants that are extremely toxic to humans that will kill us that day. And so if we recognize that as safe, and say, okay, well, I can eat this and this is safe and I can survive on this, and this will get me to my next kill, and this will get me through a famine or something like that. That's a survival advantage. And so that's why we think that fructose is it's much sweeter than the other carbohydrates. And so you need a lot less of it to get that sweet sensation. But then we adulterate these fruits as well and make them way more sweet than they ever were in nature. And the fructose itself, again, can cause harm. So it'll give you a quick hit of energy, a quick boost, but too much of it, you can overwhelm your body's ability to detoxify it, and it can end up causing harm. So that's why I don't eat any fruit, and I just sort of advise people about that. And also, I want to be in ketosis. I don't want to avoid ketosis. The argument for for eating sweet fruits is because if you want some carbohydrates to keep yourself out of ketosis, well, what are the least offensive carbohydrates? Okay, I don't want to be out of ketosis. I want to be in ketosis. That's our main biological, biochemical state and metabolism. That's where all of our heavy machinery comes to bear biochemically. That's where everything starts working in a more cohesive manner. We have much more energy. We can tap into our fat stores. We can run on our fat energy all the time. Even a 65-kilo person who has 6% body fat, so a very lean person, has 150,000 kilocalories of energy stored in their fat tissue, their meager fat tissue, and they can tap into that. So you can go weeks without running out of energy and even breaking down your muscle tissue if you're in ketosis, right? And so that's a massive advantage. So I'm not just eating carbs all the time, and I desperately have to eat carbs and eat more carbs, and I have low energy, and I eat more carbs, and so I can pick my energy up. And you're doing that whole game where you're eating carbs to jump up your blood sugar level, but then it crashes down. You have to eat more, and it crashes down. You eat more, and it crashes. I'm just here all day, every day, and I like being here. I like just having perfect energy all day, every day. And so I get up in the morning, I go and do my thing, I work. I, see patients. I don't stop for lunch. I don't need to. I don't need breaks. I just work throughout the day. I see as many people as I can. If I have time, I go to the gym. I go home and I do interviews and online consultations, try to help people generally till about midnight. And then I am answering emails and messages until like 1 or 2 a.m. And then I go to sleep and I wake up and I do it again. And you know what? My energy is here the whole time. And when I'm on call overnight and I'm operating or doing, seeing patients or just getting harassed on the phone because it's just feral sometimes on when you're on call for neurosurgery. I have perfect energy. It's here. Like, yes, I want to sleep, but if I can't sleep, I have the energy, I have the mental acuity and sharpness that I need to perform, potentially life-saving surgery on people in the middle of the night with 1 hour of sleep, right? So I don't want to be I don't want to be eating carbs. I don't want to have those ups and downs. I want to be in ketosis. And so the main argument for eating fruit is to get carbohydrates and to get out of ketosis, but I don't want to be out of ketosis. So to me, it's just it's a moot point in any case. So I don't even consider it in the first place.
If you're enjoying this interview and you want to see more carnivore related content like this, consider subscribing down below.